Hope is not loud. It does not march with banners or demand to be seen. It begins in silence, like a seed beneath the soil, raking itself open in the dark. It grows unseen, reaching upward without knowing what waits above. Hope is the quiet revolution that turns despair into dawn. It begins in the smallest corners of our lives, in a sigh, in a whispered prayer, in the decision to rise once more when everything feels heavy. It is the strength that does not shout, the courage that does not announce itself. It moves quietly through the cracks of broken things, stitching together what life has torn apart. Hope does not deny suffering. It walks beside it. It holds the trembling hand of sorrow and says, softly, "You are not alone." Hope knows the taste of tears and still believes that something gentle can come after them. It is not a shield against pain, but a companion through it. When the world feels weary, when injustice echoes through the streets, when love seems like a distant star, hope does not turn away. It kneels beside what is wounded and listens. It does not say, "All will be well," as if by magic. It says, "I will stay until the morning comes." And in that staying, in that faithful waiting, light returns. There is a temptation to think that hope is naive, that it belongs only to dreamers or those who do not understand how cruel life can be. But real hope is born from truth. It is not the denial of pain, but the decision to love despite it, to care, even when caring hurts, to keep a candle lit, even when the night feels endless. The quiet revolution of hope does not begin in the streets. It begins in the human heart. It begins when someone chooses kindness over cynicism, when someone forgives instead of retaliating, when someone helps without being asked. Every act of compassion is an uprising against despair. Every small gesture of goodness is a rebellion in a world that sometimes forgets how to be gentle. You see, despair thrives on noise. It feeds on shouting and outrage, on endless arguments and blame. It loves when we close our hearts and stop believing in one another. Hope, however, speaks softly. It does not need to win every argument. It only needs to endure, to whisper, again and again, that goodness still matters. Sometimes, we look at the world and wonder if anything can change. We see division, greed, and sorrow, and we feel powerless. But the revolution of hope does not demand power. It asks only for presence. It asks that we show up where we are, with the love we have, and begin there. Imagine a single candle in a vast darkness. It does not chase away every shadow, but it allows us to see. And if one more person lights their candle, and another, the darkness does not disappear, but it recedes. Hope spreads like that, not in explosions, but in ripples, not in triumphs, but in tenderness. There are days when hope feels impossible, when we lose someone we love, or when we fail ourselves, when the dreams we carried crumble in our hands. On those days, hope is not a bright flame. It is a fragile ember, and yet, that ember is enough, because even a single breath can bring it back to life. Hope does not demand certainty. It only asks us to keep breathing. Hope grows in humble places, in a mother's patience, in a friend's forgiveness, in a stranger's smile that arrives just when you need it most. It grows in the silence between words, in the moments when we choose to listen rather than judge. It grows whenever we refuse to let bitterness have the final word. The revolution of hope is not a victory over others. It is a victory over indifference, over fear, over the voices that say, "Nothing will ever change." Hope changes us first. It softens our gaze. It opens our hands. It teaches us to see beauty in what is unfinished. And when we change, the world around us begins to shift, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet rhythm of kindness. There is power in gentleness. In a world obsessed with strength, gentleness is often misunderstood. But gentleness is not weakness. It is strength under control. It is love disciplined into patience. It is the decision to nurture rather than to wound. Hope thrives in that soil, because where there is gentleness, there is room for growth. Think of the earth after a long winter. Frozen, silent, seemingly dead. And yet, beneath the frost, life prepares its return. Roots stretch, unseen. Seeds stir. The thaw begins slowly, not with noise, but with quiet persistence. That is how hope works within us. Even when our hearts feel frozen, something within us begins to move toward life. Hope teaches us to trust that the invisible matters, that the unseen efforts, the unnoticed kindness, the unspoken prayers, all these weave the hidden fabric of renewal. We do not always see the fruit of our hope, but it grows nonetheless. Sometimes, the tree we plant will give shade to someone we will never meet. Still, we plant, because hope is generous. To live with hope is to live with open eyes. To see not only what is broken, but what is being repaired. To notice not only the cruelty of the world, but the quiet mercy that moves through it. Hope asks us to pay attention to the birds that keep singing after the storm, to the child who still laughs, to the hands that rebuild what others destroy. There are many who believe that the world will never change. But change begins in ways too small for the headlines. It begins when someone chooses honesty in a place of corruption. When someone apologizes and means it. When someone shares their bread with a neighbor. That is how the world heals. Not all at once, but one heart at a time. Hope does not promise that everything will be easy. It promises that nothing is wasted. Even pain can be transformed. Even failure can teach. Even loss can make space for deeper love. When we allow life to shape us with humility, we discover that hope is not something we hold. It is something that holds us. Hope is patient. It does not rush the dawn. It waits with trust that light will return, even when we cannot yet see it. It waits like the farmer who tends his field, knowing that harvests come in their season. It waits like the child who believes that the morning will follow the night. To hope is to believe that goodness is stronger than cruelty, that love is more enduring than hate. This belief may not always be proven by the world, but it is written into the human heart. Every time we love, forgive, or begin again, we give testimony to this truth. There is a hidden courage in those who hope. They carry no weapons. They fight no wars. Yet they are the builders of peace. They heal what others break. They speak softly in a world that shouts. Their revolution is made of tenderness. And though it moves quietly, it moves everything. Hope has many faces. It looks like the old man who plants a tree whose shade he will never sit beneath. It looks like the nurse who works through the night, holding the hand of a stranger. It looks like the young person who still believes in justice, even after disappointment. It looks like you, when you choose to love one more time. There is nothing small about such hope. It is the most radical thing we can do, to keep believing in goodness in a world that often forgets it. To keep showing up when it would be easier to give up. To keep seeing light where others see only darkness. Sometimes, hope is simply refusing to close your heart. Even when you've been hurt. Even when you're tired. Even when the world tells you it's foolish. Because hope knows that love is never wasted. Every act of love plants a seed in the garden of humanity. And someday, somewhere, it will bloom. Hope also asks us to be humble, to accept that we do not control everything, that healing takes time, that others may walk a different road. Humility and hope are sisters. Both remind us that life is larger than our understanding, and that something sacred is always at work beyond what we can see. There is a deep peace that comes with this kind of hope. It does not depend on outcomes. It does not crumble when things fall apart. It rests on the quiet trust that goodness has the final word. Not power, not fear, not death, but goodness. We may not always see the end of our efforts, but we are part of a story larger than ourselves, a story that began long before us and will continue after us. Hope connects us to that story. It reminds us that our small lives, our small choices, matter, that kindness ripples outward in ways we will never fully know. To live with hope is to live attentively, to notice the sacred in the ordinary, the light in a stranger's eyes, the warmth of bread shared, the courage it takes just to rise each morning. When we begin to see these things, we realize that hope is not something we chase. It is something we recognize, already here, quietly at work in the fabric of life. There are moments when the noise of the world grows too loud, when suffering feels endless and peace feels far away. In those moments, it helps to return to silence, to breathe, to listen, because in silence, hope whispers. It says, "Begin again." Hope never leaves us. It may grow faint. It may hide beneath fear or grief, but it is always there, waiting for our notice. Like a bird that has not stopped singing, only moved to a quieter branch. We do not have to create hope. We only have to clear enough space in our hearts to hear it again. When we live from that space, that stillness, something changes in us. We become less anxious to control, more willing to trust. We become less judgmental, more compassionate. We begin to see others not as problems to fix, but as fellow travelers carrying their own burdens. And that is when hope begins to spread, quietly, irresistibly, from one life to another. This is the quiet revolution the world needs. Not the revolution of anger, but of tenderness. Not of noise, but of listening. Not of victory, but of mercy. Every person who lives with this kind of hope is part of that revolution, whether they know it or not. And perhaps this is the great mystery, that the smallest acts of love can move the world more than the greatest displays of power. That hope, whispered through the cracks, can outlast the loudest despair. That gentleness can rebuild what force destroys. In the end, hope does not ask us to be heroes. It asks us to be human, to keep showing up, to keep caring, to keep believing that love still matters. It asks us to look at the brokenness of the world, and instead of turning away, to begin mending it with whatever small thread of kindness we have. So, let us not wait for great signs or perfect days. Let us begin now, in the quiet places of our own lives. Let us be patient with one another. Let us listen more, judge less. Let us be the kind of people who refuse to surrender to cynicism. Because the truth is, hope is already here. It is in the hands that serve, in the hearts that forgive, in the eyes that still look for light. It is in the ordinary people who love without applause. It is in you. It has always been in you. And when we live from that place, when we carry hope as quietly as the seed carries the promise of the tree, the world changes, gently, from within. So let us walk softly upon this earth. Let us be kind without reason. Let us believe that tomorrow can be better, not because it will be easy, but because love still breathes among us. Hope is not a shout in the darkness. It is a candle lit in the wind. Small, fragile, but enough. And may we never tire of lighting that candle, again and again, until the quiet revolution of hope fills the world with dawn.